Hello, welcome back, my friends. My name is Tamitha, if this is the first time we're going to spend time together. Today we're doing something that I have been really looking forward to because I'm bringing together several skills that we've already been working on. We're going to be working with a yeast risen dough. We've done a lot of that. We're going to be working with extracts that we've made homemade. And so I've been asked many times, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with those extracts? How will we use them? Well, I'm going to show you today how we use two of them. And the butter that we're using in the recipe is our homemade cultured butter. So we're able to bring in several things together, and as we go forward, we're able to do more of that, where we're bringing in ingredients we've made and turning them into the end results, because we've actually gotten to the point where we're stocking our pantry pretty well. And I'm so excited to show you this. Now, if you don't have the cultured butter, that's okay. It just adds a beautiful flavor, an extra depth of flavor to our dish. Can you use store-bought butter? Of course. If you didn't make the extracts, can you use store-bought extracts and use something different because ours are a little unique? Of course you can. Work with what you have. My goal is never to make you feel like, well, I can't participate. I'm missing something, or I got here late. The videos that you may have missed, I'll link below so that you can catch up at any time. But if I'm making a recipe, I try to make it so that we can all be included. I have no desire to leave anybody out. That's just, I just want us to be together as a group, enjoying ourselves, eating well, feeding our families well, and eliminate as much of the chemicals and crap that, that for whatever reason is legal to feed us. So with that being said, today we're making a dish that is, it's a dessert actually, and this dish is from Germany originally and from that entire Bavarian area. And it was brought in to this country through New York, through German settlers. And it is a yeast risen crumb cake. The flavor is absolutely incredible because it's yeast risen. The texture of the sponge itself is so good. And then, of course, we've got that beautiful thick layer of crumb, the powdered sugar over the top. The flavors are all very, very good because we're using the best ingredients, many of which we made ourselves. So we're going to bake something fabulous today. I'm excited to share it. We're using ingredients made here and stocking our larders. I'm excited. Let's do it. Okay, so now we can be more specific. We're going to make two. This recipe is very large. And I made it that way on purpose because if we're going to go through the effort anyway, and we're going to make the mixer dirty, and we're going to do all the things, let's make a nice big batch. We'll bake half, and that'll be for us to have for morning breakfast over coffee. This is, I'm telling you, once you try this, it will be one of your favorites. And it's great for gift giving, for bringing to someone's house if you're coming as the guest. This is just a great, really wonderful pastry. However, by making two out of the one dough, and making some small changes to the second dough, it gives us two different versions, but it also gives us the ability to wrap one really, really well and freeze it. And that allows us to have something fabulous to pull out for breakfast or for dessert, when a guest shows up unexpectedly, when you're invited someplace and you need something homemade on hand, but you just don't have the time. Using our larder, our freezers, using these spaces, our resources to our benefit by making sure that we always have really good stuff ready to go. It stops the need for stopping to pick up something that's just not to the standard that we've all become accustomed to together, because we're awesome like that. So we have, oh, as always, I have a printable. I gave you the details of where the dish is from because I just think when we're working with dishes that are from around the world, and it's one of my very favorite things to do. So you're going to start to see more of that because as we're working with homemade flavors, that opens up the world to us because we're not stuck using just what's at the supermarket in our local area because we're so willing to make a lot of these ingredients ourselves. The planet suddenly becomes our menu. And there are some amazing flavors all over the world. And it has been my joy to essentially travel the world without leaving my house because I stock my house that way. And I hope that I can encourage you to perhaps do a little of that as well, because you can't beat the price of travel when all you really have to do is learn the food and go to the dining room. It's awesome. So we've got on our printable, the skills that we used that we've already shared here on the channel. The links will be below. A little bit of a note about the history of this particular dish. The ingredients now, and the ingredients, because we've been blessed with people who watch us from all around the world. So I have the American measurements, I have the measurements in grams, and for our hardcore bakers, I have the measurements in baker's percentages. And from going forward, I will always do that so that as we grow in our skills, like for example, I don't use American measurements, but I've been baking a very long time, and I do find that working in grams is just easier. It's very convenient, and I'm accustomed to it. When you're working with bread and you're adjusting recipes and so forth, those baker's percentages make all the difference in the world. But when you're new to baking, it's very difficult, and I understand that. But I will show you how to do all of these things. One step at a time, we're all going to end up in the same place with kitchens that are going to be the happy place and the joy of our family. Okay, so we've got our ingredients, the method, and then the streusel, the instructions for baking, and then I added a little spot here for how to make sure you wrap it well for freezing, and then how to defrost it so you get the best result. We have everything. It's here. This will be linked below the video in the description as always. So we've got our 2 extracts. We're using vanilla extract and our Fiore di Sicilia extract, which I cannot get enough of this stuff. We're using instant yeast. We've got our sugar, our salt, our cultured butter, this is homemade, and 3 eggs that thankfully come from outside. They're being slightly less begrudging. Maybe it's because the roosters are chasing them around and they're realizing that I can stand between them if they're nice to me, which sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Anyway, I'm going to get our all set up. We're going to go over to the mixer and we're going to put this together. This goes together really well, and then it just needs to rise because it is a yeast risen cake, which I know is unusual, but the texture is worth it. So we're going to use our Broad & Taylor proofing box because our temperatures have been like this, and so the house isn't a great temperature for proofing on the countertop. So I'm going to set it in my proofer. If you've got an oven that you can turn the light on, that's perfect. If you've got one of these or a different version of a proofing box, that's great. Also, what works well is in a microwave with a nice hot cup of water. Just close that up. The steam and that warmth is locked in there, and it makes a great proofing box. If you don't have to buy or you don't wish to, problem solved. Okay, so I'll meet you over at the mixer, and we are going to get mixing. We're going to have cake. When I was going over the ingredients, I forgot this was in the microwave warming up. Milk. Now, so that means that we're making an enriched dough between the milk, the butter, and the eggs. It's enriched. That does mean it takes a little bit longer to proof, but you get a beautiful crumb. This is not an overnight recipe. This will be done very shortly. Okay, so this time, for real, I'll meet you at the mixer. I don't know what I'm doing. Set up in the background here. It's not sponsored, by the way. I just really think this is a great piece of equipment, is my proofing box, and I have it set to 76 degrees. I think that that works great where I am, somewhere between 76 and 78. For where we are in Southern Virginia, this is working well for us. In fact, you see I have the window a little bit open, but that's not because it's not cold. It's because the heat in the house is drying out my sinuses and making me cry. You didn't ask, but I shared anyway. So here we are at our mixer. I get asked a lot about this mixer. This mixer is a Viking stand mixer, and they don't make it anymore, which I think is such a shame because this is a great mixer. I don't know why they decided to stop, but I absolutely love this, and my plan is to keep it until it just gives up and walks away. So in our bowl, we have our warmed milk. Into the milk, I always add my extracts. I just find that when you add your extracts to a liquid, you're guaranteed that they get distributed really nice and evenly. That may just be in my head, but it is what I do, and I'm still doing it. I used instant yeast, which means I do not have to proof it. I always just add it in at this point because here come the eggs. One at a time. The yolks are absolutely beautiful. They're bright orange. That's actually because we've been giving our chickens these really cute little dehydrated treats. They're like, I don't know, larvae, fly larvae. I mean, it's disgusting, but they love them. Now I regret bringing it up. Okay, so in the bowl we have our yeast, milk, eggs, our extracts, and here comes the sugar. We always use natural cane sugar. We do not use beet sugar here. Do as you will. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money on your budget, but there are some places where I find, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but it makes a difference. And sugar is one of those places, in my humble opinion. And I see an egg yolk floating around in there just being rude and disrespectful. So one of the things when you have chickens that are laying for you fresh, the yolks are really, they're not in a hurry to break, which is just an interesting little side note. It's actually really easy to handle your yolks from fresh eggs because the yolks stand straight up. It's really quite a thing. All right, I'm going to turn this off and start to add my flour. I do not dump all my flour in at once because it causes clumping. Will the clumps come out? Of course they will. But that adds to the effort and the time, and I don't wish to do any of those things. So I add about half. And then into that half is where I add the salt, because I don't let my salt and my yeast spend any time together. Okay. And then we turn this on, let that mix through, and then we add the rest of our flour. And our last ingredient is going to be our softened butter. It's a really nice feeling when you're making things from scratch and you're using ingredients that you've made from scratch. Just feels a little special. If you drop it in too fast, it clumps up and becomes very difficult to work through the entire dough. Again, making it harder than it needs to be. So I slow down for a second in the butter and I let the butter that I've already added become incorporated before I add more. And now you want to set a timer for 8 minutes. This should take 8 to 10 minutes to knead and become shiny and glossy and beautifully incorporated. You see butter still floating around in there? That's fine. It will pick it up. So our time is up. Look at the difference. When we started, this was a bedraggled mess. It was stuck everywhere. Now most of the bowl is clean and our dough is shiny and beautiful, and it's not sticking to me. That is when you know you're done. Don't worry so much about the time. Look for these little marks. That's going to be your best bet, because then it won't matter what kind of mixer you're using or if you're doing this by hand. We will all know what we're looking for, and that matters most. So now we're going to transfer this gorgeous dough. It is so silky. And it's buttery, but the butter we used is the cultured butter. So the butter aroma, is so vibrant. The vanilla I used the bourbon vanilla. I didn't use the vodka this time. And we used the homemade Fiori di Sicilia, which is so wonderful. Okay, so now we're getting the dough out of here. We're going to let this rise. It should take about 90 minutes. If your house is very cold, it will take longer. If your house is very warm, it will speed up, and that's not ideal. I know that sometimes we feel like, well, if I can get it to go faster, why not do that? The reason, especially if you're dealing with yeasted doughs or sourdough, is because the fermentation process is where flavor is, it's not just raising your dough and giving you the structure, but it's also developing flavor. And the fermentation process is when that takes place. So if you cut down the time it takes in that cycle, you're reducing your opportunity for flavor. So if you're in a hurry, I totally understand that. It happens to all of us. Just know that while you'll get something faster, the flavor would be affected by giving it a rush. Is it possible? Of course it is. Once you have the skills to do this stuff, you can do whatever you want when you need to do it. So now we've got this covered with our very fancy in vogue fashion top here called a disposable shower cap. I love these things. I buy them on Amazon in a big old bag and it lasts me forever. These things, I keep using them until the elastic gives up or they get a hole in them. I'm going to put this in the proofing box and I'm going to set my timer for 90 minutes. I'll show you what it looks like then. So now we're making the crumb topping while our dough is rising. So that's all-purpose flour, light brown sugar, cold butter. Now our butter is our homemade butter, our cultured butter. It doesn't have to be, but if you have it, it is ideal. A little bit of cinnamon and a pinch of salt. Okay, so what I've done so far is I've mixed all the dry ingredients. Wow, my first day with my new lips. I've mixed all my dry ingredients. And now I'm just going to cut up. The butter is really quite cold, and it's important that it be that way. So I'm just going to cube up the butter, and then we're going to work it in. Okay, so I didn't have quite enough of my homemade. I was very close. This is store-bought. This big chunk I have here is the last of my homemade. So I'm already needing to start another batch. Stuff goes fast. Okay. It's just so good. It's hard to stop eating. Once you have it available to you, it's very difficult to say, no, I'll have the store-bought stuff. No, you won't. Okay. I'm getting every little bit off of the parchment paper. I don't want to waste a drop. Okay. Now we're just going to toss the butter in with our dry ingredients, and then we're going to work it in. You can use a pastry cutter if you would rather do that. You could use a fork, 2 forks, anything like that. This is one of the few occasions I'd actually rather do it by hand, and I absolutely hate having things stuck to my hands. I think we've all established that. But this is one of those occasions where it works better. This is the better tool for the job. And, you know, it's not particularly uncommon to have a nice pair of clean hands be the best tool for the job. Oh, how I hate this stuff stuck to me. But here we are. And you're going to want to work this butter all the way through until you're making... Oh, the butter is really cold, so some of it I'm really having to press really hard. And the butter is going to start to stick to itself with the flour, and it's going to form these nice big chunks. And what I like to do is even form a sheet. You see that? You do that, and then it just breaks up a little easier. Because we want to make sure that every bit of flour is coated. We don't want any dry bits just kind of sitting on top of our gorgeous cake. Every little speck of flour has to be covered in butter. And you'll know because you'll be able to pick it up and it'll just form like chunks like that. Now our dough has quite a ways to go to rise, so once this is done, I just set it in the refrigerator so it doesn't melt. Our flavors marry, and when we're ready for it, it's ready for us. That's just the best way to use your time. Okay, so then you press down, and you see we're forming these beautiful solids. That's what we want. And when we go to sprinkle this on top of the cake, we don't want it to break them up so that it goes back to looking like teeny tiny crumbs. We want our crumbs on the cake to look like this, to be of, varying sizes, but of a good size. That is about the texture of when you bite. It is absolutely beautiful. And we used brown sugar instead of white sugar, which is going to give us tender crumbs. So they won't be hard and crispy. They'll be flavorful and tender. And that's simply a matter of which sugar you chose. If you prefer them to be on the crispier side, use white sugar, and that will give you that result. Okay, so now I'm just going to clump it a little bit. I'm not going to break it apart right now. I'm just going to leave it just like that. I'm going to scrape this off my hands, cover it, and put it in the fridge. Okay, so now we're going to chop chocolate because remember, we're doing two versions. And I don't want to use chips. Why? Chocolate chips have stabilizers in them. I don't know if you're aware of that, but there is a compound that is added to the chocolate for chocolate chips that allows them to maintain their shape even after they're baked. And you know, that's how chips always look like chips, no matter, even when they come out of the oven. So to eliminate that, you have to use real chocolate or a bar of chocolate, which is what I'm doing here. And you just chop it. Now you rough chop it. You use a serrated knife. A serrated knife makes cutting chocolate much easier. Now I'm not cutting it tiny because it could just kind of go into tiny little flakes and then kind of disappear into the dough, which is also not what I'm looking for. Okay, so now we're looking for 200 grams. So I've got my scale over here to the side. So I'm going to weigh this and give me a sec. So we need to prepare 2 9x13 pans. So now what's going to happen here, this is the one I'm going to bake that we're going to eat. This will be for tomorrow morning's breakfast. I'll bake it tonight. It'll be ready for tomorrow morning. But the one that's going in the freezer, I'm going to bake in here. I like this because it comes with the lid, which it just makes things easier. And then we still wrap it. The lid is not enough, but it's a very good start. And they fit very nicely in the freezer. They don't force you to use one of your good pans and then have it locked away in the freezer where you can no longer use it. So I do find those to be very helpful. And if you're going to be traveling and giving your cake away as a gift, you don't have to worry about, you know, getting your pan back, because my pans are my treasures. And I took the time to make something for you. It's because I care for you, but I'm not giving you my pan. I mean, my pans are my babies. I'm not giving you my pan. These are my treasures. I'm not the girl that you buy jewelry for. I'm the girl that you buy kitchen equipment for. So we've just got some softened butter. Okay, nice and soft. Do the same here. This is unsalted butter. It doesn't matter. Will the world end if you buttered your pan with salted butter? No. I'm just telling you it's unsalted because it happens to be. It's what I'm using at the moment because it's what I had in my hand. In theory, best practice dictates that when you're baking, you use unsalted butter. The reality is I use salted butter 90% of the time, and I don't spend any time worried about it. And I have never, not one time, had a negative result. Okay, butter. Nice dough. Beautiful color. Oh, it smells great. Releasing. Now this is where you hear people say, punch down the dough. I do not punch my dough. My dough is my friend. I don't feel compelled to punch it. Seems like such an oddly aggressive thing to do. So now we're going to weigh my dough, just so that we can be rather exacting, because remember, this is going to be, how much this weighs determines how long is it going to cook. We don't want a big one and a small one going in the oven at the same time. This is one of the cases where we're going to bake both of them and then we're going to freeze one. The one that we're going to freeze, we're going to pull out of the oven first. We want to pull it out when it needs another 3 to 5 minutes. So it just needs that little bit of extra so that it can complete baking 100% after we've defrosted it and we're refreshing it. We can take it that last bit of the way. Doing it that way ensures that you get what you would never be able to tell wasn't baked fresh right that time. So what we need is 989 grams of dough each. Okay. We're still going to weigh, but I'm going to try to get as close as I can. When you're weighing dough, the easiest way to get it onto the scale and not make a mess is to weigh it on parchment paper. Okay. These are exactly 989 grams each. Our chocolate. Press down. Now, you see how simple that was? Our chocolate is folded through. And we're going to pick up our dough, transfer it right into our pan, and then we're going to press it out. Remember, this is a cake, not bread. We're not concerned about maintaining whole structure or anything like that. That is not our concern. We want to make sure that the dough fills the pan all the way to the corners. And this is going to rise one more time, but we have to put the streusel topping, the crumb topping on first. Okay, see? Just like that. Now, I have 2 pans here. I actually will stack them. And you may be thinking, but why? Why are you wasting that? These are very thin. And to make sure that we don't end up with burnt edges or a burnt bottom, I use the extra layer as a little insurance, because this will make sure there's a little bit of an air gap in between the two. And that gives me just enough little bit of insulation to make sure that we don't end up with a little burnt booty on our cake. The second the second pan will not have been baked in. There'll be nothing in it, and the pan will not be harmed. It's working just as insurance. So we can still use the pan. And it gives a little more stability when you're handling this, because these can be a little flimsy. So if you're using one, they can be kind of wiggly. If you use 2 together, they're much more stable. You see that? So, and we don't want a thin side and a fat side, so we want to make sure that we take the time, you hear the bubbles, to fill the entire pan so that it's as even as you can get it, okay? Now we're going to get our topping. This has been in the fridge the whole time our dough, show you, this has been in the fridge the entire time. It's nice and cold. So now I'm going to move this so I can show you what I'm doing. Can you see? Okay, I'm just picking it up and making the pieces into crumbs, not teeny tiny crumbs. See, because it's been sitting in the fridge, it's going to come out like that. Just give it a squeeze, Some will be big, some will be a smaller, but they will not be itty bitty little crumbs. That's not what we're looking for. Okay, then we'll take this, put it back on top, and we're going to evenly divide our filling. Even if it gets down into the corners, that's delicious. So, and I do it by fistfuls. So I said 2 fistfuls here, 2 fistfuls there. Now what we're going to do is cover these up and let them rise one more time for 35 to 45 minutes. We're not going to do anything else weird to them. They're just going to, if we have a really big clump, like, you know, something that big, we can break that up just a little bit. We want to make sure that we don't have any naked spots. We want to make sure that we don't have any spots that are very heavy and then with the crumb topping, and then spots that are just about bare. We don't want that. Every bite should be delicious. So we're going to cover these up and let them do their final rise, and I'll show you what they look like right before they go into the oven. See, here we are inside my proofing box. Down on the bottom rack is the chocolate one, and on the top is the vanilla. Nice and cozy. Okay, so these have proofed for about 40 minutes. These could even go for another 30, but we're actually puffing very nicely. You can start to see where the dough is starting to puff up and move some of the little, our little beautiful, my brain did it again. What is this? Somebody tell me. Crumb, for God's sake, crumb topping. Oh, Lord help me, Jesus. It's getting moved out of the way because we're starting to form little bubbles. So we're going to go into the oven. Now, here's the key. If you're going to freeze one of these, the one in the metal pan, this one, we're going to bake off completely, and we're going to put the powdered sugar on it, and this will be the one that we eat first. This one that I have in the aluminum pan, and remember, I have it doubled. Makes it easier to hold, and it thermal insulates to make it a better baking product. It'll get cooled all the way down, get a lid put on it, no powdered sugar. But one of the most important things is this does not get baked to 100%. This gets baked to like 96%. You want to pull it somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes early, just a hair underbaked. That way, when it defrosts and you put it back in the oven to refresh it, it'll finish that last minute or two, and it will be like if it was freshly baked out of the oven. You get your best results that way. Okie dokie, okie dokie, into the oven we go. Okay, so we had to pull the one that we're freezing, as I told you, out of the oven early, just a few minutes. And you can see, if you look closely, let me see if I can get you closer, you can see that there's still some moisture there. That was just a few minutes left. We did that on purpose so that there's room when we pull it out of the freezer, defrost it, and we want to refresh it, having it be just undercooked, just by a little. Well, it'll finish at that point, and it'll be like it's freshly baked. Perfection. So we're going to let this cool all the way down. We don't want to put this in the freezer while it even has the slightest bit of warmth to it. So we're just going to set this aside. I'm going to get a rack for it and let it cool all the way down. Then we'll cover it and wrap it and label it. The one that we'll be enjoying will be out of the oven in a few minutes. Here we are. This is right out of the oven. You see how golden brown we are? This one is darker because of the nature of the pan. This one conducts heat a lot better than this one does. And this one was pulled a few minutes early to leave room for the reheat because this one's being chilled and then frozen. So now, even though it's still quite warm, we're going to let it cool down for just a few minutes. We're going to get a sieve and powdered sugar, and we're going to completely dust the top and let it cool all the way down. Sorry about that. It smells absolutely incredible in here. And I'll be right back. I tend to do this twice. Once when it's warm and the sugar will stick, and once when it's completely cool, I do it again. The reason for that is if you do it when it's completely cool and the sugar is not sticking, when you bite into it, you will be covered in powdered sugar, which sounds fun, but it's less fun than it sounds. When you do it when it's hot, the first layer sticks and is just more pleasant to eat. And when you inhale, you don't get a throat full of powdered sugar. I learned that the hard way. Nobody wants an autopsy report that says death by powdered sugar. So now we let this cool, and we're done. Now the beauty of European desserts is that they are less sweet than their American counterparts. American desserts tend to be pretty high in sugar. European desserts are not nearly as high in sugar, which I for one appreciate. Oh God.